All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justmoparjoe. I'm going to break this up into two different parts for you. I know there's a lot of people that will be brand new racers this year because of the no-name nationals and because they want to try bracket racing, drag racing, whatever. So I've been doing this a few years. I'm not an expert by any means, but I can give you some of the basic stuff you need for your car in order to go down the track and them not throw a wrench at you. So let's go ahead and get started with this. You can go to the AHRA online website. It's called AHRAonline.com. And there's 132 pages of drag racing rules there. So I based a lot of what I'm telling you today off of that. Also, other stuff that I've seen at other tracks. I've been to about 6 tracks in a couple different states. Every track's a little bit different, but they're all pretty similar. So let's go ahead and begin. So I will also mention these AHRA rules are obtainable by most people, unlike the NHRA stuff. A lot of that NHRA stuff is kind of high buck. It puts a lot of low budget racers like myself out. I mean, it just, so many certifications and whatever for certain speeds. They are a lot faster, a lot more efficient at their tracks, but there's not as many grassroots kind of people there. So with this list, I just want you to keep that in mind. My car is currently out of spec for some of this stuff, and I'm not scared to show it to you. I'm going to fix it. Okay, so starting at the rear of the car, my battery is firmly secured. See, these are like 3/8 inch studs here. A lot of tracks would prefer you have a top on that box. This is just a marine box that I got from Summit for fairly cheap. It's not stated in the AHRA rulebook you have to have that sealed. A lot of bigger tracks will require you to, but for no-name nationals, this should be great. This is fine in Arkansas. Firmly secured. It's out of the driver's compartment, and I wanted to show this to you. You can see my seat through here. I'm going to build myself what I would call a rear firewall, and that would just enclose the cabin from the fuel cell. If there was an accident, it rolled over and whatever, I would have fuel coming inside the car with me. Getting that fixed is crucial on my end. You'll notice I do have a roll cage in here. I believe this is an 8-point cage. And the rules state for that, you have to have a cage if you run 999 or faster in the quarter or 639 and faster in the eighth. And both those would require a chassis certification. This cage is not certified, so I'm not running 639s with this car in the eighth, so I don't have to worry about that. We can move on around. Axles, you have to have aftermarket axles and C-clip eliminators of some kind if you're running 699 in the eighth or faster. So see, you can't exactly see mine because of these wheels, but if they wanted to call and check it, they could. So 699 in the eighth or 1099 in the quarter have to have those aftermarket axles. Also, while we're back here looking, I wanted to show you, a lot of tracks say that the wheel stud itself has to reach into the nut, that same diameter of the stud. So if you have a closed nut in the rear, a lot of people will call you on that. Having this sticking out further past the wheel is always a plus, and it could even stick out further past the nut. That would be good. These are just barely outside of the nut, so I'm fine. But yeah, keep that in mind if you're running slicks or something like that. If you are running slicks, you need to have a drive shaft loop. I'll show you a picture of one of those. It's typically within the first 10 or 12 inches of the front U-joint. In case that explodes or comes apart, it'll catch the drive shaft and keep you from doing a pole vault in the track. That's a big safety deal. Their current rules for that say any car with drag race tires, I believe it says slicks or drag radials, must run one. Or if you run 999 in the quarter or 649 in the eighth, you also need one. Also, here at the back of the car, you need to have one working tail light, and that just helps on the return road, or they can see you down track. at nighttime. A lot of these events run late into the evening, and there'll be good lights on the track, but off the track, not always. So I've got to get one wired up for this. I'll probably go ahead and just wire up two, and I'll have that going for it. If you are running a roll cage, they do recommend that you have a piece of padding there anywhere that your head could contact if there was a rollover incident. Something else about the cage, if you're sitting in the car with your helmet on, your helmet is not supposed to be above the cage itself. So if you're tall John, you might have a problem there. I'm pretty tall and I don't have an issue with this car, just having a higher roof line. Obviously, you got to have seat belts for every car. These are not actually up to spec for that track because they don't have the or submarine belt going through the bottom. These aren't SFI approved either, so I'll need to get that fixed. Let's see what else. And it needs to be the 5-point harness whenever you run 735 or faster in the 8th, or 1139 in the quarter. So there'll be a lot of cars there that are just fine with a simple factory lap belt or something like that. But for probably a true race car, I would go ahead and get a harness. You know, you can always be overprotected, but you definitely don't want to be underprotected in this situation. I'll move all the stuff out of the inside of the car. I don't ride around with mufflers normally and that box of stuff, whatever. Clear out anything that could fly around when you take off, that sort of deal. The master cutoff switch is required. Cars 999 or faster in the quarter, or 639 and faster in the 8th. So technically I don't need one. It's a really good idea. If you think your car could get squirrely or wreck or anything, they could run up and cut that off. It's just really a nice idea, especially if you store your car over the winter. You don't have to pull your cables off and on 100 times, etc. Or if you're charging a battery or doing whatever. It's really nice to have, so I definitely recommend that. In order to drive your car down the track, if you run a 639 or faster in the 8th, you've got to have an AHRA, NHRA, or IHRA license. Regardless, you have to have an actual driver's license to go down the track, and I think the minimum age is 16 years old. So back around to the front, the SFI balancer is required if you run a 649 or faster in the 8th, or 999 or faster in the quarter. Also, you'll need a SFI approved flex plate at the same times. And that's just a safety thing. A stock one could explode or come apart or whatever. A lot of guys won't have to worry about that running slower than 649. But I just thought I would mention it. And at 649 and faster, you need to get yourself a scatter shield that will wrap around your transmission, help prevent any explosions. A lot of the JW bell housings are already SFI approved and you won't require a shield then. But like my cars, it probably won't touch 649. I'd love for it to, but I doubt it. So I'm okay without it. But a lot of cars, especially 727 Mopars, the front drum can explode if you're doing like neutral drops. I talked to Dallas about that. And a lot of tracks will require it if you're running a trans brake in your 727. So just keep that in mind. And for the stick shift racers, they'll probably need a blow-proof bell housing. This is just a stock aluminum one. You can see my ram clutch there hanging out on my old Challenger. But this is not a race car, this is just a street car. So if you are showing up with slicks on your stick shift car, I would recommend a blow-proof bell housing. People like Uncle Tony or maybe Jed at Scott's Speed Shop, they should probably have one. So just something to think about. One other crucial important thing here, you need to have an overflow bottle that line runs into. This car currently has a Coors Light aluminum bottle it's pretty secured. I wouldn't recommend that for the racetrack. In your radiator, also do not run antifreeze. A lot of tracks will not let you even go down the strip at all if you have antifreeze in there. And the reason is if there's an oil down or you have a leak, blow a head gasket or whatever, and it leaks on the track, it's really hard to clean up. They can get the oil up, but that antifreeze just turned into a slippery mess. Something else to keep in mind for your fuel line. This one is a metal line that runs into rubber. I've got a glass fuel filter. A lot of people don't like those. They can break if they bang against something, which I have mine to where it won't touch anything. But a plastic or metal one is probably better. And then for rubber fuel line, a lot of tracks will say no more than 6 or 8 inches of rubber fuel line. So I need to get this corrected also. This was kind of my attempt to quickly get to the racetrack and still keep it safe. My lines over here for transmission lines, they are just braided. Having rubber lines there is also a bad idea, just because if one blows off or gets a cut or tear or anything else, it's going to oil the track down. And even worse, it could cause you to lose traction at a high speed, so that would be bad. The helmet rating was on page 50 of the AHRA online rulebook. I say go ahead and bring yourself a good helmet. If it has a front face on it, that's good too. They had mentioned an open face for certain times and whatever. You can look that up, but I would have a helmet there just in case. You're better off having one and not needing it. This is just a DOT approved motorcycle helmet, but it's worked fine for years, and I'll probably keep using it until I can't anymore. Also, a lot of tracks require a neutral safety switch. This one is old and ugly, but it still serves a point. Basically, you won't be able to start your car unless it's in neutral or park. And if it jumps out of gear, it should go ahead and kill the car for you instead of letting it run over anybody standing around while you're revving on it. And here's one not mentioned, but I will go ahead and tell you, having 2 springs there for your throttle return, in case one breaks or something like that, it won't let your throttle hang open. That's always a good idea. I ran one for years, and a lot of people told me about that, said you need to get that fixed. It's a good safety thing. Having a switch inside also. Here's my switch. Switch is up top. If I need to turn the car off, I can very quickly. It's easy to access. And if it's a safety requirement, really, in my mind, to be able to cut that off fast. Also, if you're running some kind of nitrous, or you plan to, I would mount the bottle outside of the cabin of the car, maybe back here in the rear, and have it's supposed to be vented to the outside. So just like my fuel line here, I need to get it vented to the outside. It's kind of hard to do because where do you vent it to? It's without drilling a hole through a panel. I'm not going to do that. I'll have it vented out of the cab space. I wanted to look at you and tell you this. One of the worst things for a day at the racetrack is when somebody oils the track down. And I know they've mentioned, or someone did, talking about having a oil down award or something. If you win the oil down award, you're going to be the only one happy about it. So if you think you have a chance of your engine blowing up or something, you can get yourself an engine diaper. This is a Summit. There's a part number. They're fairly inexpensive. And they usually come with a couple of these pads that will kind of encapsulate your oil pan. And just keep it, if you throw a rod out the side of your Chevrolet or Ford, then the diaper itself will help kind of save that. It'll help catch that oil, and it'll keep an entire 8 quarts or 12 quarts or whatever you got in your car from running all the way down the track. So hopefully that helps somebody out there. If you have any leaks, be sure and fix those ahead of time, because you can show up and get to run that first pass, and they tell you next time you pull around, your car's leaking too much on the track or whatever. Small amounts, sometimes they won't say something, but to be safe, you should probably have that rear main fixed or whatever it is. If you can't fix it, maybe consider a diaper or something like this to be able to save it from hitting the track. It's a safety deal. If your car loses traction, or if you lay down a bunch of oil down the track and no one sees it, the next fast car that goes through can turn sideways and flip over. So whose fault would that be? And we have to mention clothing. A lot of guys don't even think about that. You can't go down the track in flip-flops, sandals, anything like that. You got to have closed-toed shoes, and you got to have full pants on. If your car runs 649 or faster, you need yourself a fire suppression jacket. And I want to say if it's, there's a faster speed than that to get the full suit. So if you're worried about it, get yourself a suit. I know you may look goofy getting out of a 10-second car with a full suit on, but it's a safety thing. So people can think what they want to about your safety. It matters at the end of the day if you're safe. And I know it kind of goes without saying, if your vehicle's not in good working order, you probably shouldn't take it down the racetrack. You have plenty of time to prepare beforehand. I know it can be a fun impulse thing to try to drive your car down the track, but if you know that something's going to fail on it and could potentially harm you or someone else, just skip it this time. I want some of y'all's input in case I missed anything. If you have something nice you'd like to share from your experience, include it in the comments and put a pound sign so that people know that's a good tip that they can follow. Obviously, I don't have all the information out there. Dallas said, really, if you're making a conscious effort and your car is safe, then you won't have an issue. They're not going to be out there trying to, run cars off and make them load up because of little piddly things. But I'm trying to give you a guideline. Hopefully it'll help you not only at No Name Nationals, but anytime you go drag race somewhere, because it could be the first time you're there, and after you get bit, you're going to want to keep going. You can ask Ruben about that at Muscle City Madness. Okay, so lots of guys have figured it out. This is a fun thing to do. This is better than staying home watching football. This is better than raking the yard. Okay, so part 2 of this series, I'm going to talk about actually what practices to use at the racetrack, where to look, when to burn out, kind of how to stage, the differences in races, things that you need to know if you've never been before, and it'll really help you out. So I've got a little bit of personal experience. I'd like to share what I call drag racing etiquette with you. A lot of new guys don't know it, and they pull up and do the wrong thing, and it makes a lot of people mad behind them. So hopefully that helps you out there. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch you next time.